disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, been in the movement for almost 50 years. Or is it over 50 years, Prabhu?
I can start.
Yes. Can you hear me, Prabhu? Or
I
no?
can hear you.
I was asking, have you been in the movement? Is it over 50 years? Or about
Since 1973.
Since 1970, 50 years serving the mission of Srila
50
Prabhupada.
years,
50 years. And we're so grateful that Prabhu was so inspired by Prabhupada that 50 years he's continuing the same mission. So we'll get to hear from him today on how we can appreciate Srila Prabhupada more. Hare Krishna. Nirantar Prabhu?
Yes.
You can get started, Prabhuji.
I can start?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Haribo. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. I offer obeisances unto the auspicious lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Samsara davanala idaloka Tranaya karunya dhanaganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Just like the quality of a cloud, out of his causeless mercy, Srila Prabhupada comes to deliver the people of the world who are afflicted by the forest fire of material existence. Since Srila Prabhupada has obtained the mercy of Krishna, he is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Mahaprabho Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasora Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Srila Prabhupada is gladdened by the chanting, dancing, singing, and playing of musical instruments inaugurated by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And due to relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, Srila Prabhupada sometimes experiences the standing of hair, the quivering of his body, and the shedding of torrents of tears. Sri Vigraharad Ananitya Nana Sringara Man Diramarjanadao Yuktasya Bhaktangs Chaniyunjatobi Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Srila Prabhupada engages in the daily worship of the Archa Vigraha deities, who are decorated with various clothing and ornaments. And Srila Prabhupada also engages in the cleaning of the temple, engaging his disciples as well. Chatuvidha Sri Bhagavat Prasada Swadvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan Kritvaiva Tripting Bhajatak Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Srila Prabhupada is certainly always spiritually pleased with 4 kinds of holy palatable foods which have been offered to Krishna. And when the devotees are satisfied with Krishna prasadam, Srila Prabhupada also feels satisfaction. Sri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namna Pratikshana Swad Analolupasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. At every moment, Srila Prabhupada aspires to relish the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna, known as Madhav, as well as their holy qualities, names, and forms. Nikunjayuno Rati Keli Siddhyai Yayali Viyukti Apekshaniya Tatrati Dakshad Ati Valabhasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Srila Prabhupada is very dear to Radha and Krishna because of being very expert in assisting the gopis who, in that connection, make all kinds of desirable arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's pastimes of conjugal love. Sakshadhar Ritvena Samasta Shastrai Uktastatha Bhav Yata Eva Sad Vihi Kintu Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Srila Prabhupada is directly one in quality with Lord Hari. This is acknowledged by all scriptures, and this is also accepted by great saintly persons. Thus, Srila Prabhupada is certainly very dear to Lord Krishna. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi Dayan stuvang yashastri sanyang Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. It is by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that I can get the grace of Krishna. And without the grace of Srila Prabhupada, there is no means of spiritual advancement from anywhere, Thus, at least 3 times a day, sunrise, noon, and sunset, I must meditate and praise the glories of Srila Prabhupada. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. All right, before I go any further, does everything sound okay? Everything good? All right, now we go. There are 3 parts. Don't miss the last part. It's a special treat. So now we go to part 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, on today, I am always reminded of this wonderful verse by Prahlad Maharaj. After Lord Nrsimha killed his father, Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad offered more than 40 prayers to Lord Nrsimha. But this one in particular, I always like to meditate on this day, Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. Here is the Sanskrit. Evang janang nipatatang prabhavahi kupe kamabhikamam anuya prapatan prasangat kritvat masat surashina bhagavan grihita sohang katang nu visrije tavavritya sevam. My dear Lord Nrsimha, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve the transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? So, when I read this verse by Prahlad, I just swap out the words. Watch what I do. But your servant, Srila Prabhupada, kindly accepted me as his disciple. And that was in April of 1974. And instructed me how to achieve the transcendental position. Now here is the line that I meditate. My first duty, therefore, is to serve Srila Prabhupada. How could I leave his service? So this to me is everything. If I can execute this and constantly remember this, then my path to perfection is guaranteed. Now here's the purport that Prabhupada wrote to this verse. Kindly hear with rapt attention. Prabhupada now writes, as will be seen in later verses, even though Prahlad Maharaj was directly offered all the benedictions he might have desired, Prahlad refused to accept such offerings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, Prahlad asked Lord Nrsimha to engage him in the service of his servant Narada Muni. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. one should serve the spiritual master first. It is not that one should bypass the spiritual master and desire to serve the Supreme Lord. That is not the principle of a Vaishnava. Narottam Das Thakur says, Thandera charana sevi bhakta sanevas janame janame hoy e abhilash. One should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised that one become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Gopi Bhartu Padakamalyor Das Anudas. This is the process for approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be rendered to the spiritual master, so that by his mercy, one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. While teaching Rupa Goswami, Lord Chaitanya said, Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. One can achieve the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru, the spiritual master, and then by the mercy of Krishna. This is the secret of success. One should try to please the spiritual master, and then one should attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado. One should not attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by concoction. One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master. And when one is qualified, one is then automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj proposed that he engage in the service of Narada Muni. Prahlad never proposed that he engage directly in the service of the Lord. This is the right conclusion. Therefore, Prahlad said, Sohang katang nu visrije tava britya sevam. How can I give up the service of my spiritual master, who has favored me in such a way that I am now able to see you, Lord Nrsimha, face to face? Prahlad Maharaj prayed to Lord Nrsimha that he might continue to engage in the service of his spiritual master, Narada Muni. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so I'm going to now play a song that my wife and I composed about Srila Prabhupada, and then after that If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. I want to, before we go any further, I want to thank the devotees there in Rock Ground for allowing me this privilege to speak about Srila Prabhupada. And I would like to now offer my obeisances to all the devotees I see in that nice temple room. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So my wife has written several songs over the years, and those songs are her Vyasa Puja offerings. And I, of course, put them to music. So here's the one I selected for today. I like the mood of this song. This is called Prayer to Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, kindly show the way. Please help this soul who suffers this day. At every moment I just meet defeat. Kindly give me shelter at your lotus feet. You're teaching me to be pure and wise. Please come and force open my closed eyes. Give me shelter, I have nowhere to turn. It's love of God I desire to earn. I'm such a fool I cannot see all the things you have given me. You have taught all there is to know, but my acceptance is very slow. I pray to you with all my heart to let me have another star, so undeserving I know I am. Without your help I'm surely down. Please give me just one more chance, and like a puppet make me dance in any way that you so desire. Just put out this blazing fire. I'm such a fool I cannot see all the things you have given me. You have taught all there is to know, but my acceptance is very slow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All right, do we have any questions today?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. It's always wonderful to see your enthusiasm of serving Srila Prabhupada. Now, almost 5 decades later, you've been, those of us who don't know in the temple hall here about your background and your services, I certainly am very fortunate to know a little bit. How do you keep such steadfast enthusiasm alive 50 years later? And that for us could be an inspiration if you can share your secret with us.
Very easy, very, very easy. It was actually stated today by Prabhupada. If you remain fixed at the lotus feet of your spiritual master, then you will always be enlivened. You are Brahman initiated, right, in ISKCON? All right. So you know that there's this word that appears in a few of the mantras, prachodayat. And specifically it says that we meditate on the spiritual master who is enthusing us in our devotional life. And this question that you have asked is something that just within the last couple of days, again, I have realized that if we are constantly hearing, I can't emphasize enough, hearing from the spiritual master. That is what is going to keep you fired up. Now, the very process of hearing and chanting and deity worship and all the activities that we do in Prabhupada's movement are by their very nature enlivening and encouraging and enthusing. Perhaps yesterday you realized that. You were working hard all day, fasting all day, and by the time midnight came, you were muy extático. So it is the nature of the devotional activities that keep you enlivened. But if you want, now that I think, I just got a text message from Krishna. The real thing that will inspire and enliven and enthuse is if you know you have some preaching engagement. At least for me, if I know I have some preaching engagement coming, that keeps me enlivened. Just like today. I had to spend 3-4 days waiting for Krishna's text message how I was going to do the program. Fortunately, this morning, the message came through. So, and you want another thing that keeps me fired up? Prasadam. We should have good prasadam. The prasadam should be very, very tasty. And for me, good prasadam. And my favorite book, Krishna book. If I read Krishna book, actually if I read Chaitanya Charitamrita, after a few moments of reading, I'm so fired up. So I would just say, surrender to the process. That's the key. Now, I don't know about you, but that first round of japa in the morning, that's the hardest. Right. But once you get through, so you start off slow, but little by little, Hare Krishna, and the more within time, the holy name has taken over. So just engage, just surrender to the process, and hear, constantly hear. You all, most of you have spiritual masters, so hear the voice of your spiritual master, because the spiritual master's voice has the potency. Or else hear from the founder Acharya every day, and you will be fired up.
Thank you.
And take good prasad also.
Anyone else has any questions? Okay, no more questions. Everything
All right,
is clear.
If there's no more questions, then I have another song. How would you like that?
I think I would love to hear more about your personal times and experience with Srila Prabhupada.
All right. So let me tell you one story. All right. Hold on. Let's get this organized. All right. So I have a few incidents with Prabhupada. Most of them are quite embarrassing. I don't have any outstanding incident with Prabhupada that I can brag about. Mostly they're all very embarrassing. So I will tell you the one that is very significant. So it was on this day. It was either September 5th, 6th, today's the 7th, but it was either September 5th or 6th, 1975. I was in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada, earlier that year in April, opened the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And then Prabhupada went touring. So sometime in late August, Prabhupada came back to India. I was there, and my good friend, my good well-wisher, at that time he was Gopal Krishna Das Adhikari, who knew me from Brooklyn. He had told me weeks before that you're going to get Brahmin initiation, which was the main reason why I went to India in the first place. So that was like, oh, great. So Prabhupada came, and the day of getting the Brahmin initiation, after the fire sacrifice, Prabhupada also gave first initiation to different disciples. Later in the afternoon, I was informed, okay, come later after lunch, and Prabhupada will initiate you with the different Gayatri mantras. So, all of a sudden, I realized that none of my devotees were clean and dry. They were all wet. So that was my first problem. So I had to go to my senior godbrother, Nitai Das, and he very mercifully gave me one of his dhotis. So then I came, and Prabhupada's secretary at that time was big Brahmananda Swami. And when Brahmananda Swami saw me, then he said, okay, here is the Brahmin thread. And it was all like this. You know how Brahmin threads are. He said, here's your first test. You have to untangle it. And of course, when I tried to untangle it, it became all entangled. So Brahmananda shook his head and said, I don't know, Nirantara. He knew me from before. Said, I don't know if you're ready. And I almost started crying. So he took a new Brahmin thread and he unraveled it. And he said, okay, go through that door. Prabhupada is waiting for you. So I walked in, and just like you're sitting on the floor, Prabhupada was in his outer room, sitting on a mat. So I walked in, and Prabhupada is sitting, not facing me. I just came in, I paid my obeisances, and Prabhupada hit the bottom of the mat that was next to him. There was another mat. So he patted it, indicating, come sit. So I was sitting right next to Prabhupada, right there. So then he had the sheet of all the Gayatri mantras. And he was saying each word, and I had to repeat. And I said to myself, oh, good, because I'm good at Sanskrit. So I went through each word, Om, Om, Bur, Bur, flying colors. I said, oh, this is going to be good. So then Prabhupada turns to put the thread on. And me, being stupid, I thought, oh, I will assist Prabhupada. So I lifted this hand, which was right next to Prabhupada. He took his hand and went like this. He slapped it down gently and then looked right at me and said, have you not seen the others? And I just went, time stood still. I just froze. Then Prabhupada, so initially his face was, have you not seen? Like he was puzzled. But then his face changed and he said, oh, all right. And it was like your grandfather excusing you. So he touched this hand, this arm. So I got touched by Prabhupada. And then he put the thread on. And I was so freaked out, I just paid my obeisances and ran out the door. So that's how I got Brahmin initiation. I made a complete idiot of myself. So I cannot say like other God brothers of mine who have done so much great service to Prabhupada. I simply am a bungling fool. But I do have one thing. I like to hear the sound of Prabhupada's voice. That much I have. I like to hear his singing, and I like to hear his speaking. So at least I have that. So my dream is that when it's time to die, I have on my cell phone here, I have so much Prabhupada. I have Prabhupada bhajan and kirtan and lectures. So on my deathbed, I simply want to hear Prabhupada's voice. That's my story.
Thank you very much for sharing that wonderful story. Yes, and back in the time, it might look like reflection of some embarrassing moment, but for us, who are second generation devotees, this is nectar to our ears to hear your experiences firsthand with Srila Prabhupada. So thank you so much, Narendra Prabhu, for sharing that with us.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you so much for joining us. The next part of our program is Pushpanjali now. So
Thank you.
we will be in touch soon again. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today.
All blessings on the devotees of ISKCON Round Rock.
Hare
May
Krishna.
Krishna bless you, protect you, and may you always be with utsahan, enthusiasm to execute Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.